been working in compliance for about 2 years now. I started off initially working in financial compliance in KYC, and then I moved over to legal compliance, doing essentially the same thing but under the SRA rather than the FCA and the PRA. So it's primarily client onboarding and AML, so it's basically when a client comes to us, we look at who they are, where the funds are coming from, and just basically ensure that it's legitimate, so there's no money laundering or terrorism involved. There's no risk to the firm. I'd studied law beforehand and I found law quite interesting, but I found more so interesting the internal workings of a firm and what regulates it, so I decided I wanted to have a job that I found really interesting and something that I find fulfilling, so I thought that would be the way to go forward. I enjoy, well, you learn a lot about different businesses and how businesses work, and also it's quite interesting when you see one little company and then if you look into it, it leads you to a much bigger company and then on to a bigger company, on to a big company, and also sometimes it'll be really complicated and you obviously understand why it's complicated for different reasons, like tax reasons, but it's quite interesting to see how they're all linked in some way, so it's a bit like being a detective, kind of. You need to be very patient because you're dealing with, well, you need to have good interpersonal skills initially, because you're dealing with people, a lot of people who don't really know who you are. They don't really want to be told what they have to do, and they don't want to be told what they don't want, what they can't do. So you have to be very patient. I mean, it can be a bit taxing telling somebody to do something the first time, but when it comes to the 10th time, you still have to be just as patient, because you've got to be stable and you've got to be focused on what you've got to achieve and the fact that it's actually going to help them. You talk to a lot of people throughout the day, so it's good to meet the people and talk to them and find out what they're doing as well, so you learn a lot about the workings of the business itself. I think it's important to understand what compliance is there for and what the function of the compliance unit is, and to understand the bigger picture. So the role you're doing, although it may seem insignificant, and actually has quite a big effect on the rest of the firm, and it's not really realised how big of an effect it will have until something goes wrong, which it could never happen. So if you just stick with it and understand why you're doing what you're doing, and then you'll have a better idea of why you're telling people what they have to do. So getting a good idea of what's going on around in the regulatory environment, and understanding if you're telling somebody what they have to do, you have to know why they've got to do that, because otherwise you can't really tell them to do it with authority or confidence. Networking is important with any career you go into, because that's how the world goes around basically. If you meet people that you get on with, you can understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, and also get an idea of what the sector itself's like. I did actually start the compliance diploma before I went into compliance, and I found it really useful because I understood what the role would entail and why we were doing what we were doing. It also gives you something to talk about to people that you go to interviews as well. I think it's important to get an idea of the whole role in general before you go into it, because if you have a career in it, you want to do something you enjoy as well, so there's no point in going to something you're not interested in.